Let's get weird, buddy. Let's get weird.
Guys, where are we?
Well, if there's a bright center to the universe, you're on the planet that it's farthest from.
Welcome to the Outer Rim. Enjoy your stay. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun, and we're back talking more Severance Season 1, a rewatch as we discuss this for the first time on the channel because Season 2 is coming January 17th, and I will be here every week talking about it. I may or may not have guests. I don't know. That's still up in the air. But that doesn't matter right now because right now we're here to talk about episode 5. We're at the halfway point now, the direct middle. Then there's 4 more episodes of this first season. And this one is called The Grim Barbarity of Optics and Design. So if you like what we're doing here on the channel, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Full spoilers, and also because this beginning of this episode is a direct, like everything that's happening at the beginning of this episode is a direct result of what was happening at the end of last episode. So trigger warning, because we'll be talking about somebody that's trying to take their own life. So if you've seen this episode, hopefully they gave you the warning, and we'll be talking about it here in a second. So yeah, I mean, well, right now, let's just jump into it because I want to keep getting more and more streamlined here and not always, veer off into, not every episode has like a million things to say, but what am I talking about? This episode, every episode of the show has a million things to say. I don't know what I'm talking about. Because I mean, a big part of this, I mean, again, is keeping workers separate. Keeping us separate, keep us fighting each other. This again is not just something that's, going on at Lumen. This is something that goes on across the country. This is what happens. This is what is happening to us in our country. I keep saying this, just like on this show. Companies do it too. If we're fighting each other, we're not looking at what the fuck is going on and with who's in charge of what we're doing. And this show is like such a great way of talking about this and more within this like really amazing mystery that has been unfolding with such great performances and comedy and heart and just trippy fucking moments every step of the way. I mean, this for all the shit that's going on in the world, man, like if you're looking for, when I'm looking for good ways to distract myself, this is how I want to do it. So let's get going I mean, it's powerful. I mean, what was the end game here for Helly? If they were going to call her bluff, eventually this was to her the only way out, is if you won't let me out, I will take us both out. And what do you think of that? And knowing that when she gets in that elevator, she's going to cease to exist, hopefully forever. And her outie is going to realize that she done fucked up. But for, and this would have been an incredible choice if they had actually stuck this, and said, no, Helly's gone. But that's not the point. Like, some shocking death is not the point of like what's going on here. What's going, like, the more interesting story is how this will eventually affect, like, when we find out what we know, what we will find out about her outie and how all of this will affect her. We haven't even gotten to. So if she were to die now, like, none of the answers, unless they decided to like throw some kind of like flashback or like, this is what was going on to Heliar's outie during this whole time. I mean, they could have done that, um, but they didn't. And also, this is if she goes, like, it's it's worse for Mark as a character. Mark needs more on the inside and outside to do what he needs to do in the end for this show. Now, maybe I'm wrong, man. Maybe this will subvert my expectations. But I mean, Mark in both in and out of work is formulating ideas about Lumen and how they're with what he's seeing from Heli R and the reaction he's getting from everyone, and now he's reading this book, and we'll get to that. So many things are changing inside Mark, and if she dies there in the elevator, then he doesn't get any of this extra stuff. Um, but it's still really effective, and through all this, right? You know, Granger's running around, but it's good that again that he gets thrown in that elevator, right? Instantly forgets, but then instantly remembers. So it's like his life is on a loop. So he gets in the elevator, and it's just he knows. Usually, I'm going to just blink and be here, but you can tell that he's so freaked out that, like, when he goes from being freaked out to still freaked out, like being like right up into that moment, he never. It's got to be messed up to know that, like, you're this moment that's happening instantly for you is a time jump for everyone else. So when the elevator door opens and it's Cobell and Milchick standing there telling him, and of course, this happened on your watch, Mark. Like, Jesus, what the outies have to, or the innies have to go through. Where, I mean, in some ways, it's like never sleeping. Like, what would it be like to never sleep? Is interesting. But I mean, they did an X Files on that, and the motherfuckers in that did not sleep were fucking killing each other, and they lost their goddamn minds. Um, so yeah, I don't. But I mean, they don't need sleep. That's the thing. Is like the people in that X Files, they really needed sleep. So like removing all of that is just crazy. Um, and yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about with this part. Is once he gets to talking to them and she puts it on him. What happened? Not that anybody could have gotten to her outie and said, gave her more warnings, told her maybe you really shouldn't work here. No, they put it on the guy who's not the responsibility. I want to talk about that because how many of us out there have been in situations like this where your fucking boss tries and either succeeds or fails at throwing you under the bus for something that is clearly their responsibility. This to me, like, just says, like, when I think about Cobell and what she's up to, when I think that maybe she's somehow, like, this is me just throwing out a conspiracy theory or just a stupid theory or whatever. I don't think it's a conspiracy theory, but just a wild theory. Whenever I think about her possibly being on doing some kind of plan to bring Lumen down, when she acts like this, when she tries to, because, like, they're not going to blame Mark. The board's not going to blame Mark no matter what. Like, but she's still in this position where she thinks that, like, she can bully him and make him feel bad because somebody needs to feel responsible besides her, right? So it's like shit rolls downhill still, even in this place. And I just think that that's just another way of, like, incorporating a lot of office life into this with these, like, extreme situations, unlike anything that we've gone through. But, like, it's the same, but not. Or wherever you go, it's the same shit. But Mark, while Helly is out, for a little while, he keeps reading Rickon's book. and it's very like pro worker and worker happiness, and you're not your job. So he's getting all of this information like when he goes to work and he has free time. He's pumping his head full of all this stuff that to him is blowing his mind. Same thing with Dylan. They're all reading this book and all getting more and more like ideas of what I call kind of like the beginning of unionizing in some fashion. It's the other departments don't know about each other most of the time. They don't know how many people even work there. That's by design. But to me, this is kind of like the beginning of like a group of people that would call something like this, or what we would call unionizing, like start to give them the ideas of change, and we're the working force. How do we, like if we're so important to you guys and this all this secrecy and yada 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 bullshit, what could possibly down the road be a way for them to get some kind of better conditions work wise. um but he's getting all this in here, and I think that that's really good, that she's gonna need like this is where we need Mark to be, so that when Helly gets back, it's not just more of the same, right? um During this time, they also run the diagnostics on the chip that they got out of Petey, and that it was a full synaptic coupling, and that he was reintegrated. And Granger says, "Hey, like, should we celebrate to Cobell?" And I'm like, is he saying that they should celebrate because they were able to get information out of it, or they were able to prove that he was reintegrated, and that would mean that there wasn't any problem with the chip, that it's not on their end, this is somebody else's fault that he went nuts to them, or like, or however it went down, like his death wasn't caused by them. It's not some like he's not some case that somebody would be able to look at and say, he died because he was severed, not because he was unsevered. Like, it's proof for them, I think, that if you try to unsever, you die. But then, wait a minute. I guess at the same time, that don't look great. But since they proved, see, I think the drama of it all still causes some kind of stain, because it's still a death surrounding it, a very controversial way of working and living. Um, Let's see. And she hasn't told the board anything about Helly. This episode, she's playing some strange games here, where she's holding off a lot on the board, and this is why, like, I sometimes go back and forth on her own, like, what she's trying to get away with. Is she can't just be trying to keep her job, unless that is the subversion of expectation, where we're looking for some grander villainous plan, when really she's just that person who will do anything to keep their job, anything to be on top. But I don't know, it just feels like she's too complex for all that, or maybe not, you know what I mean? um oh, and okay, so Mark leaves work after that first, uh, after all the montages and stuff, and it's the baby time. It's baby time for his sister. So he goes to their little birthing retreat, and this is where we get the information that Rickon's like, "Where's the book? Like, did you get that from the book? Like, we left you the book. Somebody stole the book." So Mark now knows the book is missing. Which is really more information for us and less information for Mark. It's something, I think, though, that's maybe some foreshadowing, perhaps, because maybe he'll ask, because I can't remember if he asked Miss Seldig, Kobo, if she saw the book or not. But there's where you get that information. We also had, like, the hanging of kelp. Is all this weird stuff about Rickon. Like, I love Michael Chernus because he always plays these, like, he always is such a great character actor. he always looks the same, but he somehow was able to build these like fully realized like side characters with such there's always such personality to them and such new, like so many little quirks and nuances, and he's a hell of an actor. And if you haven't seen the show Patriot on Amazon with him and a bunch of other amazing people, he's really great on that too. um but Devin, Mark's sister, she's smells coffee. She starts bonding with this other woman at this retreat, which is they deal with like midwife situations. So like the girl that Mark went on a date with, she's, his sister's midwife, which is kind of weird that they set him up with her midwife. I don't know how is that what happened? That's weird. Hey, I got a brother, that's just I don't know. That's just a weird situation, but I think she probably had it. She probably kind of I don't know, maybe she I don't know why she did it. But anyway, she bonds with this woman over coffee, talking about life and everything. Uh, I'm bringing this up because it's important later on. Um, Foreshadowing. Um, Rickon also talks about Gemma, the name Gemma, and that this was the middle name they were going to give the baby. And Mark, I like this just as a kind of a thing to say is like people who name their kids after things or whatever. I do think it's also important that, like as much as I would want to like naming anything, you know what I mean? Like you are henceforth known as this because we gave birth to you. Um, I know this is like off topic, but fuck it. It's just kind of weird, right? Like I'm surprised that more people don't change their names. And what's the statistic on that? Not just people, on the run and getting fake IDs. I mean, people legally changing their names and not last names because of fucking weddings or divorces. I mean, just regular ass first names. How many people are turning their names into a symbol? I don't know. Anyway, getting back to it. Yeah, with that, have a name without a big like feely baggage, which I think is good. I think a kid needs to have their own identity, or at least be given the opportunity to have their own identity. Um, Mark, okay, and then Mark during this whole time tells his sister, like, I think Lumen's up to something. And at least these are the little beats, like little pieces of character growth as he gets a little bit by little bit happening that he's finally realizing like something is up here. And while he's having like all this trauma experience because I mean he already is traumatized because of his wife. He got severed so that he wouldn't have to think about this as much, and now like everything with Petey, it's bringing it all right back and putting him down this path, and everything is pointing towards Lumen right now. And so with him dying in front of him in unexplained ways and all the things that he's shown him, you know he is a man that's just experienced a lot of loss right now, and now he's beginning to see who might be to blame for it. And I like the progress over only 5 episodes, but it's done like each bit is just enough for what the character I think should be going through. Um, let's see. Oh God. Okay, so like while he's right, like they do this hard cut right from like the baby being born and him having this like traumatization in his mind to him sitting there talking to Milchick and talking about can you Helly needs kind eyes because this is the first like she's literally gonna be back at the moment of her hanging, but she's not going to be hanging. She's going to be in her regular clothes and she's going to be freaked out and getting Mark's kind eyes. I love it because when she sees the kind eyes, they look nuts. I wonder if they had him practice that because boy, oh boy, did he look nuts. I love it. Um, but Mark tries both approaches to Helly. At first he's just like, all right, let's just do the back to work thing. like, hey, like la la la, I've been trying to keep you, just in the game for the job. And then he tries, when he tries to actually help her, she's not hearing any of it. And I don't blame her. I do not blame her one bit. And then we have the return of Dyken Lockman. I'm butchering that name. As Miss Casey, who herself, man, is when I talk about like severance and what they're actually doing to people that are severed, like what's possible, she feels especially fucked up. Okay, because I know she's playing the doctor, the psychiatrist. This is her role. But do we even know that she's a qualified psychiatrist, or did she just get matrixed info? She doesn't even really seem to know much. It feels like she's just rolling off of a script or a book that she read, or like a manual, um, or just doing what she's told. It's really, really strange. It's a really strange performance, a really strange character in a strange show that's somehow unique and just tells me there's more going on. And it makes me think again about what can they do with Severance and what did they do to this lady. Um, but she's there to just observe Heliar, and it's just as weird as it sounds because she's literally just sitting in a chair, like a foot away from her, just staring at her. And again, the weirdness of this character is this all she does. You know what I mean? Is it the isolation of the job of being by herself that she's so quiet and doesn't seem to really know very much outside of what she's been programmed to know? But either way, it's weird. And Irving starts to see the black ooze again. And again, I feel like this has to be. I mean, the to me the easiest answer is that this is prolonged exposure to the chip that's causing this, and that it probably happens to other people. I don't know, but if it's a different answer, I'd actually love it because I don't like when I don't like all the time when I figure out a mystery, or I don't like that when I'm watching a mystery show, I'm trying to figure out everything. It's hard to like let yourself just be washed over with the mystery so that everything that happens, you're like, oh, like whenever you watch somebody who just like is, completely surprised by every little thing that ever happens, that kind of thing. But Bert decides, after this event of black ooze falling from the ceiling and out of Mark's eyes, he decides it's time to go back to optics and design to go see Bert. He's been meaning to talk to him and confer with him, meeting of the minds, right? But when Irving goes to the copy machine, it starts printing out copies of a painting that looks like two departments suspiciously similar to O&D and MDR, um, fighting it out to the death. When all of a sudden Milchick's there saying, "Oh, you weren't supposed to see that." Like, "Oh, that's just a joke," like it's departments, having a laugh and everything. And it's like, no, man, like clearly if somebody walks up to you and says that, it's like this is misinformation. Somebody's pulling some shit. And yep, he sure is, because there's Cobell standing there waiting for Milchick as he rounds a hallway corner, and she's just standing there saying, "You ran a 266 on Irving B," which 266, I mean, that sounds like police stuff. It's like we got a 315 where we're at a fix sign, you know what I mean? Like, but whatever a 266 is, I would say it's, well, what she says, like, it's his explanation of, well, hey, I'm trying to do my best to keep Bert away from Irving, keep them away from each other, keep departments from knowing each other and all this. um I mean, it's a great way for deniability too in a court case, probably. um but again, they're straight up saying it now. Like, they're saying exactly what I've been saying, is that they're purposely trying to go. I mean, they that's part of the thing, I guess. It's not that big of a thing I'm saying, like a big shockaroo, but the whole thing that it's intent. now, is what I guess I'm saying, is that they are intentionally doing it out of their own mouths anyway, and not just out of mine. But also, this whole thing with Miss Casey that Milchick brings up, he's like, why is she there? And she's trying something new with Miss Casey, and that they should keep it between themselves. And all I can think is, again, what is her end game? And again, am I like, because I just can't pin her down and myself, there's just so many different ways this can go. But Mark, when Miss Casey comes back, Mark takes this opportunity to sneak away with Helly by sending Miss Casey away to get some stuff out of the supply room, so that they can just talk. And he wants, to try to figure out a way to help her in the way that he can, which is what he ends up telling her is like, I want to help you live down here. Okay, forget about your Audi and what she's doing out there, but while you're here, I want to make you happy. I don't want your existence down here to be unhappy any more than it is. So what can I do to help you? Right? That's what he's been trying to do. And he's, as he finds things like Petey's map and all this and this book, like he is now like a kindred spirit in spirit, I think, at this point. But Miss Casey, in her being distracted, she sees Bert just sitting in a conference room practicing what I can only guess is something for Irving, which is really adorable. Somebody standing around practicing how you want to talk to a girl or a boy or whatever. It's great. And again, not even like romantically. This can just be friendship, you know what I mean? Like, who hasn't had that conversation where you practice what you say about, like, especially if you're excited to see someone and you're like, I don't want to fuck this up, But Mark has recreated some of Petey's map, and he wants to work on it with Helly if she's willing. But she's like, I'm not your new Petey man. Okay. Basically meaning like, I'm not your new like little work. Like, we're going to have like the Goonies at work, where we're going to do our little rebellions, but still manage to get our waffle parties, all that shit. We're going to work hard. We're going to play hard. Lumen style, bitches, that kind of thing. No, she wants out still. It does not matter. And, she's talking about like what her Audi said to her, I'm not a person. And that I want her to wake up while the life drains out of her. And I want her to know it was me who did it. Like, and I get it. Because like, I mean, you look at people who work lives now, man. I've never experienced what I'm going through in my work life, and I've been working since I was 16. Over, Jesus, long time ago. And I've never felt more worn down in my life. And I know exactly how she feels. And she's new. And she's like, nope. But Bert and Irving, they meet in the conference room where they don't have rubber duckies, but they have Dylan who goes off on Bert. This brings up the whole thing of he said, she said. We're being told that optics and design are a bunch of killers, and we find out that like O&D is being told that the people in MDR have pouches and larva offspring that attack you and then eventually will eat the person who birthed it to replace them and shit. It's fucking bananas when you hear it out loud. Like when like the stuff, here's the thing. is it's so bananas down there, but like it's basically the same kind of lies that we hear up here, where we get told one thing about somebody, right? We don't know nothing about them, but we hear it enough times from some outside source telling us this, right? Like the media or whatever. Uh, and like these days, it's pundits and all the assholes on YouTube and the politicians on YouTube, just politicians in general. And I don't want to get too off topic on that, but I'm just saying, um, all the misinformation that's out there and how again they use that to keep us fighting each other so that we don't realize that we're all in this together and it's them that are controlling us and taking everything from us and we give it back to them. They pay us and we give our money right back to them. Anyway, man, I'm sounding all kinds of whatever. I don't care. I don't care. This is my channel. But anyway, basically it's them like having to come to terms where Bert and like they're gonna walk Bert back to O&D after letting him out, and they've got him like tied up with a belt or a tie or some shit, and they take the tour, right? They actually do take the tour, where and I'm kind of skipping my notes ahead, so I have to like okay, yeah. So like they go to see something in the O&D storeroom where Bert shows this painting of Keir meeting his wife and how they've been told that Keir and his wife bonded by the spirit of industry. But Bert looks at it as, if you look at the painting, it really shows them as colleagues, friends, people who knew each other and associated with each other, not the overall industry that Keir wants you to think. Keir wants you to just give over to the company and be happy with your overlords. And this is saying that whatever they started, like maybe like I said, some weirdo shit that's been corporatized, that whatever Keir had going on a million years ago in 1866, or I think is what the date was, that it's been bastardized, and it was probably fucked up and weird back when it started, but then you put a company label on it and TPR reports and HR and all that other crap, all the business jargon, and all of a sudden your cult is a corporate cult, I guess you could call it, or a cult that's corporatized. But they go in there. I mean, this is the last scene, and they go and they meet the O&D people, and it's like, as friends, we're here as friends. So they're finally, you know, breaking down barriers and where they're going to go from here. And Cobell knows it. Granger's like, what are you letting him do that for? She's letting this go too, right? But the last bit is Helly and Mark wandering the halls, places that don't have anybody at very often because the lights are off. These are all motion sensor lights. So it's really gives another really creepy twist to all of this. As they hear suddenly, having these discussions, they hear the bleating of a lamb. And that's very fucking biblical. And there's so many biblical things that are tied to this that just I think that's part of the reason why I'm also drawn to this show, is even though like because my background is religion, I'm always fascinated by how things incorporate religion into them, including a fucking company. Because I hear the lamb and the bleeding, and it terrifies me. That sound of a lamb, that's not a nice sound to me. That is a fucking terrifying sound. If you're in the dark and you're asleep and you're just suddenly you kind of wake up, right? Just a little bit, and you're just kind of conscious. And if you were to hear like how the lamb bleeding sounds in this, like say next to your bed, you'd piss yourself. But they find this room where there are sheep and goats, and then that's another biblical thing, right? Are they separating the sheep from the goats down there? I don't know. But there's this guy down there like feeding milk to the goats, and I swear that goat it sounded like it was talking practically the way it was bleeding. It was a nightmare. It's supposed to be it's another weird room. It's another weird department. What the fuck they're doing down there? God only knows. But after all is said and done, right? Uh oh well, there's really quick. There were two versions of that painting. Why would there be two versions of that painting? That's why I was like unionize. Anyway, um, Helly agrees to help Mark work on the map, and he's just really glad she's here. He says he knows that it's hard for her, but he's really glad that she's here. And Cobell, though, says at the end of all of this, right? Why are you letting this go on? To tame a prisoner, let him first think that he's free. And that's the end of this video, folks. So, what a way to finish it to me. Again, Miss Cobell, what the fuck has she got going on? So, if you liked this video and you got this far, damn, uh, please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and the bell for all notifications, as we will be back with episode 6, hopefully sooner rather than later. Have a good one. Bye. Ba 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 bum. Ba bum 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 ba 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 bum.